if you guys remind me with about 5 minutes left, I'll hand back your essays from your last test. Which, by the way, let me just say this. I was very pleased with. Now, grading 47 of them wasn't fun, but the scores, not everybody did exceptionally well, but overall the scores are higher than I've had in a while. So I just want to say I appreciate the effort that you guys put into that. And, you know, when they're really good, they're easier to grade too. So I'll have to write a lot of things down. So thank you for that. Appreciate your effort. Okay. Then I, reminded you a couple times during the break about this reading. Second hour, I don't know. Felt like a lot of them didn't read it. Hopefully that's not the case here. But as we dive into these, remember, we're trying to ratify a brand new constitution. And if there's one thing the Americans agree on, is they don't trust government. They don't trust power in the hands of a small group of people. We know that. We just had a revolution over that and created the first constitution that created a very weak national government. So instituting a vibrant, liberal, energetic new constitution, many people are going to reject. So this is going to take some convincing, yes? And in paper number 1, Alexander Hamilton is writing to the people of New York. Now, of course, Hamilton does not use his own name, right? He uses a pen name, Publius, okay? And how, anybody take a crack at this? How would you describe the tone of this paper? Is it academic? Is it strongly worded? Is it in your face? Is it persuasive? How would you describe it? Anyone? Yeah.
I think that comparative to Madison, he's using a lot more defensive of the Constitution than it is necessarily supporting. I think defensive is supporting, but.
I have so much knowledge to share with the people in the hallway down the hall. That just got shut off. Breathe. Breathe.
Yeah, take these.
Now, okay, yes, Grace, I would agree with that. I think he does strike a little bit, at times, a tough tone, okay, which is his personality. I mean, he's a kind of in-your-face guy, okay? Now, overall, what is, the main point of this paper? Yeah.
Convincing them why we need it.
Okay. One we got, not working. This one will do a better job. Yes? Now, my favorite part of the paper is the third paragraph. Okay? So in order to get this thing ratified by 9 states, among the most formidable of the obstacles which the new Constitution will have to encounter may readily be distinguished the obvious interest of a certain class of men in every state to resist all changes which may hazard a diminution of power. So in order to create this new government, states and state officials, governors, state legislators, mayors, or, city councils, so forth, they're going to have to give up their power to a national government. And many people don't want to do that for selfish reasons or for political reasons, philosophical reasons. Both. Okay. So, emulant and consequence of the offices they hold under state establishments. And the perverted ambition of another class of men will either hope to aggrandize themselves by the confusions of their country, take advantage of the chaos, or will flatter themselves with fairer prospects of elevation from the subdivision of the empire into several partial confederacies than from its union under one government. So people that are saying, you know, hey, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, we can create our own country. You know, New York, Massachusetts, or Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, do their thing. And he's calling these people out. Okay? And I like that because he's direct about it. You know, so some of it's philosophical, some of it's selfishness. Yeah.
Why is he saying that those wouldn't work?
Oh, well, I mean, it's not working the way it is. So you have basically 13 confederacies, right? You have 13 states, but the only thing holding them together is not really holding them together, right? So if they broke up into 3 or 4 confederacies, you could see that work, but you're going to have some of the same problems that you had under the Articles. That settling disputes between these confederacies might lead to war between them. If we're all one, then that doesn't happen until 1861, right? When we get a confederacy, right? So I think there's some brilliance in this. Okay. All right, go to the next page. Second paragraph down. Now, some of the words they use here, that he uses here, they use. They're good words. Yeah. I mean, you can get the context without looking up the definition, but yeah. An overscrupulous jealousy of danger to the rights of people, which is more commonly the fault of the head than the heart, will be represented as mere pretense and artifice, the bait for popularity at the expense of the public good. It will be forgotten on one hand that jealousy is the usual, there's that word, concomitant of violent love, and that of noble enthusiasm of liberty is too apt to be infected with the spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. Okay, that word liberal, guys, today it has a much different meaning than it had back then. All of the founders were liberals, classic liberals, liberty. Okay, the word today has been morphed into something else. So you have classical liberalism and you have modern liberalism. Yes? Okay. So yeah, illiberal distrust here. That they're worried that they're going to lose their rights. On the other hand, it will be equally forgotten that the vigor of government is essential to the security of liberty. That in the contemplation of a sound and well-formed judgment, their interests can never be separated. So the government protects liberty here. This is what he's saying. And that a dangerous ambition more often lurks behind the spacious mask of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidding appearance of zeal for the fairness and efficiency of government. You guys get what he's getting at here? People are using their rights as a reason not to adopt this new thing, right? So that's one of the things we added in. Like, we're not ratifying unless there is a Bill of Rights, okay? But he's also saying, he's arguing you don't need it, but he's saying that this government will be created to protect those rights. Which, where did we hear that from before? Yeah, a lot. He said that's government's role is to secure your rights. And that's being repeated here by Hamilton. Okay? So yeah, I mean this is a starter. This is getting the ball rolling. There's 84 more to come. Right? So the second one, written by John Jay. Short. When you read this, what popped into your head? What is he describing? A social contract, for sure. This is like, it's social contract, okay? And definitely we know they lean towards Locke on these social contracts, okay? Second paragraph. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government. And it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to it some of their natural rights in order to vest in it with requisite powers. It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to the interests of the people of America that they should, to all general purposes, be one nation under one federal government, than that they should divide themselves into separate confederacies and give the head of each the same kind of powers which they're advised to place in one national government. Okay, so again, just, the division with the confederacies, whether it be 13 or 4 or 3 or what have you, you're starting a new nation that is divided instead of united. Okay, so let us look at this new social contract. Now, guys, the ones that you read later on, I mean, there's ones about checks and balances, separation of powers, and things that will ease the fears of an overbearing, all-powerful government, or a president that becomes a king, like a monarch. So those things are dispelled here. Federalist number 10 by Madison really addresses this idea. You remember when we talked about 5 basic principles of American democracy, and one of them was majority rules and minority rights? He's addressing this issue of factions or groups of people that think alike. Okay? When you read this, what, in a modern sense, what was he talking about as factions, you think? A lot of people say political parties, right? And I think that's true, but I think it actually goes a little bit even more micro than that. Political parties are pretty macro, right? We have 2 major parties, we've got some minor parties. That's macro. But micro, what they're describing here, what he's describing here, or what we call today, interest groups. Okay, or the media when they, because this is kind of a negative term today, special interests. Okay. Because these special interests are looking out for themselves. They're not looking out for the general will of the majority. This is special interest. Okay. So let me throw one of these at you. This is not the National Recovery Administration, but the National Rifle Association. This is one of the most powerful interest groups in the United States today. Okay. Now, what do they do? Well, you can join the National Rifle Association, and when you join, you pay a fee to join. They promote Second Amendment rights. Okay, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. So if you join the NRA for $30 annually, they'll send you, you can choose a subscription to Field and Stream magazine for a year. You can get a duffel bag that says NRA on it. You get a pocket knife that says NRA on it. Okay. A gift for joining the NRA. Now, if 5 million people join the NRA at $30 a pop, I'll do the math for you. That's $150 million. What are they going to do with that money? They're going to educate voters on Second Amendment rights and promote certain candidates running for office that support those Second Amendment rights and promote knowledge and educate voters about those that are running for office that oppose your Second Amendment. You know, negative advertising. Yes? Let's throw another one up here. The American Association of Retired Peoples. Okay? Old people. Yes? Now, if you join the AARP, a yearly annual fee, you get benefits like discounts when you're going to rent a hotel room, or discounts on prescription drugs, or discounts on life insurance, these sorts of things, benefits. Now, if the AARP has 5 million members at $30 a pop, they have 150. And they are promoting the interests of retired people, yes? Now, you are young people, so they are competing against you. Now, you may know some old people, retired people. You may love them. They may be in your family. But their interests are competing against yours. And some people don't like that. Let me throw another one up here. This is for Hannah.
Oh.
You hate PETA.
I hate
Now,
PETA.
do you love animals?
Yeah, you do.
Especially sea animals, yes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, are there certain things that PETA stands for that helps try to protect some of those sea animals? Yes. So you share a common interest there. Sometimes they do things a little more radical or silly. Okay. But there are people out here that love animals. You love dogs. Some of you have dogs, right? You love your dogs. You love your cats. Some of you may even have bunny rabbits at home. Anybody got a bunny rabbit at home? And you know what bunny rabbits are used to do tests on that PETA gets really upset about? Makeup and perfumes, where they shave the bunny and they test it out on the skin of the bunny rabbit, okay? And they don't like that. So if you look at the packaging of your perfume, if you buy perfume or wear it, a lot of times on the label it'll say this was not tested on animals, okay? And you as a consumer can, you know, choose to buy what perfumes or makeup and stuff that you want, you know, if that means something to you. Now, you guys heard about the CDC and the beagles, right? So our government pays breeders of beagles. You guys know beagles, cute little dog, right?
Yeah.
They're very docile animals. And so they're easy to do tests on because they're docile. So what the CDC was doing was putting their head in a box and introducing different flies, different bugs, and so forth that would eat the beagle alive. Okay, testing for the effects of these things on animals. Okay, this is something that PETA would get very upset about. Okay, and it might upset you even if you're not a fan of PETA. Okay, their interest is animals. Okay. The Sierra Club is one of the largest environmental groups interest groups in the United States. They raise a lot of money to try and convince members of Congress to pass stricter environmental policy on the United States. Okay? Are they in the building today?
Yes.
Is she representing an organization? Yeah, that's odd, because I always use this. Okay. Now you guys are Catholic, okay, and as Catholics, you may have different interests than, say, somebody that is atheist. You may even have some different interests than somebody that's a Protestant, even though we all believe in Jesus. You may have different interests just based on Catholic worldview, Catholic social teaching, okay? So the thing is, all of these are competing interests. Where there's one, there's an opposite. Yes? Now, this creates a lot of money in our political system. Have you ever heard somebody complain about that? Like there's so much money in our politics? It's awful, right? It's awful. In 2008, Barack Obama was the first presidential candidate to raise $1 billion to run for president of the United States. That's a massive amount of money. Is it too much? Well, these groups can do what's called education and advertising, okay? Informing voters on issues. Now, there are limits to what the NEA can run in a television commercial about candidates. There are limits when it comes to naming the person they support, but they can certainly go after the person that is opposed to the Second Amendment. They can name that person. Okay. We have some campaign finance laws, but a lot of them have been found unconstitutional. Okay. So if I want to give $25 to Ron DeSantis to run for president in 2024, the governor of Florida, okay, this is an expression of my speech. The court has said this is a First Amendment speech issue. So you have freedom of expression. My contribution to Ron DeSantis is an extension of that expression, extension of that speech. So I can give as much money as I want. So I can give Ron DeSantis, throw another zero behind, $250. I can send him that. I can send him that. Now, I can do this to a candidate, and I can give it to this group too. A lot of these have what are called political action committees, or PACs, okay? These are the fundraising wings of interest groups. They raise the money for the interest groups. PACs, political action committees. They raise millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, okay? In the 2016 election, pay a little bit more close attention to that election than 2020. 2020 was a weird election, but in 2016, the PACs supported specific candidates. The largest PAC that had over $40 million, that was a Republican PAC, was one called Jeb Bush for President Political Action Committee. Now, you guys heard of Jeb Bush? He's the son of George Herbert Walker Bush. He's George W. Bush's older brother, who was the governor of Florida for 2 terms. A very effective governor. But we had just had 2 Bushes. As Jesse Jackson said, get out the bushes. Get out the bushes. Bush, Jeb Bush, is a moderate Republican. Running against him was a guy named Donald Trump and a guy named Ted Cruz, right? That conservatives gravitated towards, excuse me. Guy. Jeb Bush had the party, Republican Party wanted Jeb Bush. The money was lined up behind Jeb Bush, but the voters in the Republican primaries did not want Jeb Bush. Money doesn't buy you victory. You got to have a good candidate. Or the best candidate. Okay. Now, let's throw some more gasoline on the fire. In a Supreme Court case about 12 years ago, people were suing that there's too much money. Congress tried to pass limits on the amount of money you could get. Unconstitutional. And then you had corporations like Koch Industries, Boeing, General Motors, that were giving lots of money to candidates and causes. And people sued and said, corporations shouldn't be able to do that. Well, the Supreme Court said, in this case, Citizens United, that corporations are made up of people. And therefore, corporations should be able to participate in the political process. So now you have lots of money coming in from corporate interests. Unions. The National Education Association, the largest teachers union in the country, has millions of members. And every paycheck, money comes out of their check and goes to the union. And what does the union do with that money? They spend it on political campaigns and candidates. So if unions can do it, then why can't corporations do it? All right. So how do you compete? The little guy. We're getting squeezed out by these special interests. How do we compete with these? How do I compete with Bill Gates? How do I compete with Charles Koch? Or Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, by the way. And these big corporate conglomerates like Disney that owns ABC. McClatchy Newspaper, which owns the Wichita Eagle and dozens of other newspapers. How do we compete, guys? She was in house today. If you hadn't been to religion class today, you will. And you'll get to hear about this. Did they ask you for money? They didn't ask you for money? Huh?
They want us to walk.
Like do a fundraiser?
Well, just like hand out pamphlets.
Oh, okay. Would they take your money? Of course. Listen, I joined with a bunch of other Americans. We form an interest group that we focus on at $30 a pop, and we compete with Bill Gates. Bill Gates, he doesn't like the Second Amendment. But 5 million people joined the NRA to support the Second Amendment. Bill Gates has $150 million. So does the NRA. That's how you compete. It's not pretty, guys. Now let's say Mr. Ebright wanted to run for Congress. Okay? Ava, I actually called your dad a few years ago when when T. Hart ran for the Senate and lost, he gave up his House seat. He could have ran for both, but he gave up his House seat and lost the Senate bid, so he was out. So who's going to replace Todd T. Hart, right? Names like Wink Hartman Arena, big money guy. Phil Ruffin, big money guy, dog track guy. Mike Pompeo, small business owner. Pompeo got the nomination. I called Ava's dad and I said, Mark, how much money would I have to raise to be competitive? Now this is like 2010. To be competitive. Now, where you need the money in this state to run for the House is in the primary election. Because you know you're probably going to get a Republican anyways, right? So if you win the Republican nomination, the money will come. You know what I mean? It's winning the primary. And he said to be competitive, I would need to raise about $150,000. To be competitive, just to get my name out there, run some advertising, do some things, be credible. Okay. Now, I don't like asking people for money. Okay. But if I do this long enough, and you guys friend me on Facebook when we're done, when you graduate, okay, and then I decide to run for Congress, and I send out a message to all my Facebook friends from high school, like, yeah, like your sister, right? I'm friends with a lot of your older siblings, okay? And I ask you each for $50. And let's say by then I have 4,000 former students that I've taught. 4,000 times 50? 200,000? Okay. I could sit and have my wife help me self-fund it a little bit. Okay. Give it a shot. Okay. Have you met Ron Estes, Ava? He's not a real impressive guy. Now, he's a solid conservative vote, is what he is. You know, I mean, you know how he's predictable. And that's why he gets elected, because people know what he's going to do. Okay. Could I be more impressive than Ron Estes?
Sure. I would, Mr. Ebright, I would laugh if I saw you wearing a suit every day.
I'm not wearing a suit. I'll put on the sports jacket and the collar. Okay. But I'm not wearing a tie. I'm going to be that guy. And I don't want to shave the goatee either. I mean, how many members of Congress that are Republicans have beards? Mostly they're liberal. Okay. So that's how we compete. So let's talk about this paper that Madison writes. Now, guys, some of you wrote well on your essays, like well written. Some of you guys tried some themes and so forth. Okay. There were one or two that stood out as how they were written. Some of you guys just like, give me the facts. Right? Just, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
I was writing it all down. I was like the whole time.
Yeah, just go, right? Yeah. This is how you write. Yeah? This is
more than
beautiful.
50 minutes, and I will give you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
That's fair. That's fair.
He's also probably more passionate about it than you were.
This is true. He
Yes.
really was.
Yeah, he has a vested interest. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, maybe this will inspire you next time you write. Okay. All right. All right. So we'll just jump down to the second paragraph here. By faction, I understand that a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse or passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community, So that, I mean, that's a very simple thing to say. That people that oppose guns say that this is opposed to the general, interests of the community. People are dying every day because of these guns. Okay? Now, right now, is that a majority of the population that feels that way or a minority? It's a minority. Okay? Because the majority of people do support the idea of the Second Amendment for self-defense purposes, for law-abiding citizens. We do need to get guns out of criminals. And there are laws. Criminals are not allowed. Felons are not allowed to possess them. Do they? Force the law. Okay. Sorry. Okay. There are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction. The one by removing its causes, the other by controlling its effects. There are, again, two methods of removing the causes of faction. The one by destroying the liberty which is essential to its existence, which is this. Destroying the First Amendment, freedom of speech, association, freedom of, what's the word? Speech and, what's the word?
Expression.
Expression, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. The other, destroying the liberty which is essential to existence. The other, by giving every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests. We'll get to that in a second. Let's read about the first. It can never be more truly said of the first remedy that it is worse than the disease. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire. An ailment without which it instantly expired. But it could be not less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life, because it nourishes faction than it would be to wish the annihilation of air, which is essential to animal life, because it imparts to fire its destructive agency. So, what you could do is just get rid of all these groups, not allow them to participate. Destroying the liberty that exists, which is worse. Bunch of money in our politics, or not being able to have a say. Let's continue. The second expedient is as impracticable as the first would be unwise. As long as the reason of man continues fallible, he is at liberty to exercise it. Different opinions will be formed. As long as the connection subsists between his reason and his self-love, his opinions and his passions will have reciprocal influence on each other. Yeah. We have the right to be stupid. Self-interested beings, don't we? The inference to which we are brought is that the causes of faction cannot be removed, and that the relief is only to be sought by the means of controlling its effects. Now, the second way to remove the symptoms of faction is to give everybody the same opinion, the same interests. Is that possible? Has it been tried? The Nazis tried this, right? In North Korea, they are actively doing it. All information is controlled by the government in North Korea. Okay, you can't get on your iPhone and look up a different opinion. There's only one opinion. Okay, now, if you were to try to do this, the best way to do this would be, of course, through the education system. Yes? This is one of the reasons why I am opposed to the National Education Administration, the U.S. Department of Education. The Constitution does not lay out any role for government, the federal government, have one anyway. Okay, now you guys have heard of Common Core, right? You might have been part of Common Core. Now, to me, what Common Core is when we read that article the other day, no, that was history class. When you're reading this political book, okay, I'm turning you loose. You're going to go learn something on your own, and then you're going to write about it and defend your opinion of it. That's Common Core. Now try to do that with math. Just turn the kids loose to figure it out on their own. Now, obviously, I give you guys some context over, politics, the political spectrum, and so forth, right, before I sign this. But doing this with math is insane. Many of you made it through Mr. Berger's class, so you know what I'm talking about.
I did not.
That was funny.
I know, you quit.
You dropped it?
Yep, I remember that. Yeah, it was a great day.
I'm kidding,
I remember
but
that.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah. I remember when you told me that. You sat next to me in chemistry that whole semester.
Yeah, dude, it was so.
Okay. Just going on what I heard. Okay. Now, I love Mrs. Berger. Okay. No. She's like, she just opened the book every time she got it. That's fine. If you can figure it out. I couldn't figure. I need somebody to show me. Okay. Yeah. Now, listen. If you force people to attend public school and you force a particular curriculum on that public school, homeschool, oh, no. Your children belong to the state. They need to go to the state school because you might put funny ideas in their head. So there are people that feel this way. Okay. In fact, in countries like Britain, I've heard the British Prime Minister utter those words. Those kids belong to us. On medical decisions and stuff like that, yeah. I don't know, but that was more referring to like a medical decision because you have the National Institutes of Health there, or their national healthcare system, and so you have to go by what they say with medical treatment, what the government says. Yeah, for like children. This happened a few years ago. They wanted to bring him over here for some like experimental treatment. Okay, and that's one of the things. Love him or hate him, it's one of the things Trump did. He said, "Look, you can try experimental things if you're gonna die, like you're in hospice, or you've got 6 weeks, or you got 6 months, and you want to try an experimental therapy." You can do that. That's one of the things Trump signed into law. Okay. Don't you agree with that? I mean, it's your life. I know you got some kook doctors out there and stuff, right? Yeah, you do. Okay. So guys, the point is that you can't do this. I mean, you're not living in a free country if you try and get everybody the same opinions. Okay. So when you guys get older, you guys are going to start voting, hopefully paying close attention to what's going on and that sort of thing. You see all this money, these special interest groups and so forth. Join with people that are like-minded with you. Join these organizations that you support. Give them $30 a year, okay? And then your interest is being promoted as well, okay? If you don't want to play, don't play. If you don't want to vote, don't vote. Okay? If you're not informed, I'd rather you not vote. If you're informed and you have a different opinion than me, go ahead. I don't care if you vote. I want you to vote. But if you're uninformed, I don't want somebody that's uninformed canceling out my well-informed vote. Because I pay attention more than most people. So, yeah. So I think it's a beautiful expose on, human nature and understanding that this is going to be a problem, but you're going to have to deal with it. Okay, we are going to break up into factions. Started with the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Those were the first two factions. Okay? The Federalists won. But we also studied the Anti-Federalists because they brought up some really good points. They got us the Bill of Rights. Okay? So he goes on to talk about this. But, okay, so remember this one time when I talked about majority rule, minority rights. Okay, so will the majority trample on the minority in some areas? Like, I don't want to pay more in taxes, but I might be forced to by the majority. So I'm going to have to pay more taxes. But when it comes to your rights, those are written down. They can't be taken away. The majority cannot take away your rights. That's the importance of this. You see how it works. Okay? And guys, I'm more amazed every year I teach this, 230 years. This has actually worked out quite well. Do we have issues? Have we had issues? Have we had rights abused? Oh, gosh, yes. Okay. But today, when people's rights are abused, there's a lot of call to action about it. You know what I mean? And that's good. So, yeah, Federalist number 10. Beautiful. Probably the most famous of all the 85. Okay? That's how far I got with the other class. Okay. So we'll take this into day 2 tomorrow. Okay? So those of you that weren't quite ready today, maybe you can be more ready tomorrow, but you guys did a good job. Yeah, can I talk about the Ukraine?
Yes. Oh, can you hand out our essay?
Yes.
Wait, I do want to hear about that. Did I know
You gotta get-
it's right there?
Yeah.
I know. I was like, I want my essay.
Because I watched the news for you guys.
I watched it this morning. I never watched it.
Been reading about it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Did we spill?
Are you okay?
Did I break it?
Yeah, bad.
I owe you a water bottle.
That was great.
Hey, there's some. There's some.
I thought it was, yeah.
Did anybody get that on video?
Yeah.
No, I turned it off. Well, it said, wait a second. It said stop recording. Yes. Oh my God.